And welcome to the Daily Space Weather. Finally, some significant solar flares happening. We've got an M-class flare. It's a triple bagger, actually. Three-way M-class flare occurring in the past few hours here as we bring you the most detailed imagery of the sun and most comprehensive space weather you'll find anywhere in the world. By the way, I'm your host, Dan, a.k.a. Smash-O-Mash, coming at you from the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. So there is the flaring region, the southwestern limb, a prime example of how sunspots who are moving out of sight are able to produce large solar flares. Here's a zoomed out view to show you most of the solar disk. And let's take a look at sunspots as we've got some setting and some rising. So we've got a new sunspot group down here. It's pretty decent size. It's already beta gamma class. We've got some sunspot groups setting in the west. We've got a very high radio flux and sunspot number. We'll get to it here momentarily. First, the colorized magnetogram. That is yesterday plus today from SDO, the Solar Dynamics Observatory. So once again, thanks for stargazing with us. Don't forget to click our links. You'll find links to the smashomash.com homepage below the video. Because in 2019, a crack YouTube unit was sent to social media prison for a crime we didn't commit. We promptly escaped a maximum security social media stockade of the internet underground where we survive as producers of fortune. If you have a problem, if no one else can help, and if you can find the content, maybe you can hire the Smash team. Just click the links below the video. You'll find all kinds of stuff besides our YouTube content. If you're viewing on BitChute, make sure you view on YouTube. You're missing out on a lot of material by not being on the YouTube site, youtube.com/smashomash. You can also follow us on Twitter. Press like, press subscribe, press share on YouTube if you enjoy the content. We've made some changes to the home YouTube page and put different playlists up and so on, so check that out if you haven't seen the changes recently. We've got multiple playlists there, things like Terms Defined, smashomash.org presents the sun, cosmology segments, and lots more. Please view our older videos. You may be surprised at how interesting they might be. Next, join us on Twitter. If you don't have an account, set up an account on Twitter. Why not? It's the hottest social media by far right now, for sure. And look, it's not because censorship has ended. Censorship indeed continues. The shadow bans have never been lifted. And as far as I know, Elon has not done anything to change content moderation. He has reinstated some accounts. He has grabbed the mic because you'll see his tweets whether you follow him or not. So follow us. We've got 18,000 tweets and a pathetic number of followers, 338. 338 followers. 338 followers on Twitter, despite having Despite having 18,000 tweets, 338 followers. Yeah, the shadow bans are not lifted. Let's continue on to our volcano coverage. So for today, Wednesday, December 14th, these are the volcanoes that are erupting and not erupting. Semeru is erupting, producing a 14,000-foot ash plume, and Mauna Loa looks like it is shutting down here as far as the eruption there. The sulfur dioxide emissions have returned to pre-eruption background levels. Looks like Mauna Loa has ceased its most recent eruption. Sorry to everybody who was looking for the world to end because Mauna Loa, it's not that kind of volcano typically. Anyway, it can explode, but it certainly has not. Popocatépetl is exploding, however, in central Mexico. It's producing a 21,000-foot plume of volcanic ash, steam and ash and gas emissions from Popocatépetl. Fuego in Guatemala, flight level 160, it's a 16,000-foot ash plume. Nevado del Ruiz in Colombia, 21,000-foot ash plume as it explodes. Sangay in Ecuador, 21,000-foot ash plume. Revenador in the same nation also exploding, 15,000-foot ash plume, flight level 150 from Revenador. We're unable to detect Sabancaya, although Villarrica appears to still be erupting there. No indication on the size of the ash plume, but again, don't pole vault the caldera. It could be unhealthful. We need the views on YouTube. Next, looking at seismicity for the past 24 hours. There is your 90-day bar graph. No major quakes over the past 24 hours. We have had some in the 5 magnitude range. Actually, quite a low number of earthquakes there if you look at the map. And let's see what earthquakes have been occurring here. 5.4 at the Kermadec Islands is one of them. There was a 5.2 in Iran, likely causing some damage, and a 5.7 in Japan. So those actually occurred only within about 15 minutes of each other. Only about 11 minutes of each other, actually. A 5.2 in Iran, and then other side of the world, a 5.7 in Japan, only about 11 minutes apart. And that Japan quake was the largest quake of the past 24, a 5.7. The Bellini Islands region also had a 5.6. And let's move back to space since there's some exciting stuff happening, some solar flare activity finally. We'll tell you all about it and show you some splentacular additional close-up images. Here are some composite views here, 94 angstroms plus 1,700 angstroms from the SDO. And the radial flux has come up a little bit now. The 10.7 centimeter radial flux is now at 153 solar flux units. There is the 1-year graph to put it in context. The radial flux is the black line. The sunspot number is the red line. And this is the highest sunspot number we've had since July 18th. So the last time we've been to this level was mid-July. Major solar uptick there. Again, some new sunspots rising in the southeast, although some also setting in the west. Space weather enthusiast dashboard not forecasting any space weather storms here. No geomagnetic unrest or geomagnetic storm conditions are forecasted by NOAA. Let's continue on to look at Earth's magnetic moment from space during these geomagnetically calm conditions. Some people will be frightened of Earth's magnetic moment from space in geomagnetic calm conditions. Some will be frightened during geomagnetic storm conditions. I'm not sure why, but in any case, it's probably because they don't understand the physics. That's the last 4 hours of Earth's very calm magnetic moment from space, our geospace magnetosphere movie. Here's our ground magnetic perturbation map for the same period, the last 4 hours. Earth's magnetic moment from the ground, also not scary, giving us insight into where you'd be likely to see things like aurorae, pipeline, railway, and power line induction. At the moment, not a lot of that expected to be going on. Again, we've got quite geomagnetic calm conditions indeed. We'll let that play through all the way so you get a full 4-hour run on your daily space weather video. And next is geomagnetic global average conditions here. The planetary K index, it's a measurement of global geomagnetism. And the current conditions are 0.67. 0.67 is the KP index, planetary K index of less than 1 here at the moment. And let's move to the real-time solar wind. We've got a very slow solar wind here at only about 344 kilometers per second. Solar wind is also rather diffuse here at 4 protons per cubic centimeter. Besides that, the rest of those stats are fairly unremarkable. Let's take a look at some magnetic data. There are your GOES magnetometers. We had a little spike there in the GOES 17 at noontime local time for the satellite, by the way. That's what these N's and M's stand for. That's noon local time for the GOES 16. That's noon local time for the GOES 17, and so on. Let's take a look at the heliospheric current sheet. So there is a North Pole current sheet headed this way. We can expect to see that as early as tomorrow. I would say probably in 2 days, but we could see the North Pole current sheet arrive here at Earth tomorrow. By the way, if you're wondering, this data is gathered from 51 ground-based magnetometers, as well as magnetometers at stereo A and stereo B. Next, we'll look at the solar line-of-sight field plot. There is the sun's B field in blue, solar polar fields in green for north and red for south, which brings us to our coronal hole segment. Possibly the most important feature of a solar cycle. Of course, we don't know what was happening during times like the Maunder minimum because we couldn't see coronal holes back then, although people were counting sunspots. In any case, there's our line-of-sight coronal hole plot. We do have some additional North Pole-oriented coronal holes here rotating in the east. Those will become more defined in a couple of days. Here's what it looks like from SDO, 211 angstroms. And these are South Pole-oriented coronal holes. Oh, all right. This one here is north. All right. I stand corrected. This is a North Pole coronal hole, and this is a South Pole coronal hole. So again, also North Pole current sheet headed this way. That is the last 24 hours from SDO in 211 angstroms wavelength. The next thing to cover is sunspots. And there are indeed lots. The NOAA number there, as we showed earlier, is like 160 sunspots. And the new named group down here, that'll be 3165, I believe. It is a beta gamma class sunspot group. And here is some imagery of sunspots. Again, likelihood of additional solar flares remains very high. Let's don't forget that. We could see additional M-class or even X-class flares, especially from the western limb. So here's the solar magnetogram from SDO. Let's zoom in a little bit. You can see 3165 rising down there in your lower left screen, the southeastern limb. And let's switch to SDO continuum here. A little bit of growth of this sunspot group. And again, the most likely places to see additional large solar flares would be at the western limb. Continuing on to energetic particles, we don't see any, at least so far, despite having a triple M-class flare. So there's a solar flare activity. You can see 3 M-class flares there. The largest was the first. Peak flux was at 740 universal time. It was an M2.46 level flare. And let's take a look at some flare-friendly wavelengths, starting with 131 angstroms. You can see those flares happening in the lower right of your screen there, the southwestern limb. Here's 94 angstroms. And how about some fresh close-ups? And that, my friends, is the money shot of the day. Here it is at 94 angstroms as well. As we wouldn't want to leave out this species of ionized iron. Where you see white, there's a lot of that species of ionized iron. Where you see black, there's a very low amount of that species of ionized iron. Good stuff. Continuing on to a star chart. We're always interested in what's going on overhead. We like to orient our viewers to reality. We've got Mars and the Moon up there over Lehigh Valley at the moment. The yellow line is the ecliptic. The blue line is the galactic plane. You can see Cygnus just rose maybe an hour ago, something like that, as Mars sets in the west. Here's your solar system forecast. And thanks for leaving a comment, General Disturbance, who asks, which produces the most energy to hit the Earth, flares or CME? So the answer is CME, because there's a lot of physical material causing induction in the earthly system. Solar flares are just light. Coronal mass ejections are huge clouds of gaseous matter, mostly hydrogen nuclei. And good morning, One Audio. So here's your solar system forecast. Let's advance this 1 week. There's where we'll be in a week. We'll have a crescent waning moon there as we approach the new moon of December. Continuing on to some coronagraphs, as we did have some CMEs associated with those solar flares, I believe. So this is yesterday's activity from George Mason University. That's 103 frames. Some minor CME activity happening through there. And here's today's activity, and you can see some CME there emerging from the southwestern limb, likely to not be earthly directed there, again, because it is from a sunspot that has set in the southwest. That flaring region down there is probably where that CME is emanating from. Let's take a look at the stereo A coronagraph as well, and Soho Lasco C3. So here's stereo A, and do we have up-to-date data? Well, the answer is no. So let's just zoom out. We'll show the 24-hour video. Here you'll see that CME coming out of the Soho Lasco C3 in the lower right. This is a 24-hour video. Right at the end, you see that CME propagating there on Lasco C2, which is the red portion. The red coronagraph imagery, that is. And here we'll zoom out a little further. Again, a great CME showing up there, not fully done exiting the solar corona at the moment, but likely just a light show, not likely an Earth-directed coronal mass ejection, if I had to guess, which I don't. And let's continue on to look at filaments. So we've got some quite massive filaments here. Still a bunch of filaments in the earthly zone. And by the way, that CME that's happening now, that is the Elon Musk filament. So it's out there doing some space travel as we speak, as it exits the solar corona as we stream the video. Besides that, once again, lots of filaments in the Earth-facing zone. We've got some equatorial filaments over here. We've got this coronal, this solar crown filament up here. We've got a crown filament down here. So the likelihood of additional CMEs, coronal mass ejections, remains at nearly 100%. Remember, we don't need solar flares or even sunspots to see coronal mass ejections. Here's the past couple of hours from SDO, not SDO, the GOES 16 SUVI, 304 angstroms wavelength. It looks like we're seeing some activity from this sunspot here as well. So major uptick here in solar activity. We're also seeing a crown prominence forming up here around the north solar polar region. Here's the last 24 hours. And the heck, why am I looking at that again? Should be looking at 304 angstroms. There we go. There's SDO the last 24 hours in ionized helium. You'll see some plasma reorientation happening down here as well. 304 angstroms is a great wavelength to view filaments. You can see some filamentary activity going on down there. We still do have the Putin filament up here. This is the Brittany Griner filament over here. The Elon Musk filament is the one that's ejected. I don't remember the other names. Let us know in the comments. Let's do our bonus feature segment. As far as charging hazards, we don't have any. It's smooth sailing for satellites here at the moment. That's our Satellites Community Dashboard report. The electron flux is now at sort of nominal levels in the meaty part of the range there, not in warning levels and not on the floor. There's the NOAA forecast for these moderate levels of electron flux. Nothing to write home about there. There's the one-year graph to put it in context. You can see it's near the median range there of the electron flux. And let's take a look at the F ionosphere there, as we do see some interesting anomalies once again happening in the bridge between Earth and space. The F layer is located at about 300 kilometers of altitude. So there's the F layer of the ionosphere. And we are seeing some interesting anomalies here around the South Atlantic anomaly, which may need to be renamed the South Pacific anomaly because it looks like it may have shifted to the west, interestingly enough. But in any case, that's the previous day in vibrational frequency. And I'm going to show you the anomalygram, and you may be interested to see the possibility that the South Atlantic anomaly has shifted. I've never seen this one before. Normally it's right about here. But we're seeing evidence on the ionogram that it's actually now over here. So interestingly enough, if you watch this spot right here, it looks a lot like the South Atlantic anomaly. So is it possible that the South Atlantic anomaly has now shifted and become the South Pacific anomaly? That is weird, because that border there between high and low frequency anomalies is usually what we see over the South American continent, not over the Pacific Ocean. So that's a new one on me. We've seen an enduring low frequency anomaly around that area, but we haven't seen that weird variation happening yet. So that is interesting to say the least. There's the latest image, 11:30 Universal Time ionogram, 11:30 Universal Time anomalygram. And once again, you can still see that location right there where there's a huge shift. Perhaps the South Atlantic anomaly will be renamed the South Pacific anomaly. Let us know in the comments what you think about that. Next, looking at the total electron content, which is the free electrons between your GPS satellite and your handset. This imagery shows the free electrons to about 12,500 miles of altitude. And here's the animation of that. We are expecting things to become a little bit more organized here today. Although at the moment here, we've still been seeing massive GPS errors likely at nighttime and at quite high latitudes there. Normally the biggest electron contents occur around the equator at noon. We've still got electrons really out of place. So at the moment, large GPS errors continuing over places like North America. Again, we are expecting this to become a little bit more orderly here with this increase in the electron flux. Continuing on to show the latest intensitygram and the latest colorized magnetogram, we'll take a brief look at this new sunspot group. We were just barely able to see the umbra yesterday, this leading one. Today, we've got a full view. It is a beta gamma class sunspot group. It's a little more likely to produce solar flares than an alpha class sunspot group. There are the rest of the sunspot groups. And we'll actually see the sunspot number dip today because we've got a bunch of setting groups in the west. We've got more setting groups than we do rising groups. So we do expect to see the sunspot number drop, assuming nothing new forms. And let's take a look at yesterday plus today in 3 species of ionized iron from SDO before we go to the meteorology segment. There you go. There's yesterday plus today in Iron Star. And before we move to meteorology, let's pause for station identification. Welcome to the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. Congratulations to each of you on realizing that the channel exists. And of course, we are going to do meteorology. First, let's talk about some channel support. If you want to support the channel via some merch, check out the links below the video as well as on the homepage to Smash-O merch. Our Redbubble shop will appear in order of best selling. So there are our best sellers. Let me scroll down here. Still may have time to get some Christmas gifts sent out if you do the fast shipping option. Redbubble will print the products quite quickly and get them to your friends and foes' doorsteps. So perhaps send some Christmas gifts. You still have time. From the Redbubble shop, today's featured product once again is the galactic current sheet. Oh my God, the galaxy is very big. Folks, the galaxy is very big, and everybody knows that big things are to be spooked. Big things are we're supposed to be spooked because things that, right, okay, so the Earth is big, scary. The sun is much bigger than that, orders of magnitude more scary. The galaxy is much bigger than that, orders of magnitude more scary. So the galaxy, oh no, the galaxy, look at how mean it looks. It's angry. That galaxy, it is not going to put up with your BS. So the galactic current sheet, an imaginary feature of this part of the Milky Way galaxy, is today's featured product. By the way, I'm also wearing the Mensa hat, which stands for Make Earth Not Suck Again. If you've noticed, certain folks on YouTube, for example, have been making Earth suck. The Smash News Network has noticed that as well. Once again, today's featured product is my galactic current sheet. Celebrate the apocalypse in style with your galactic current sheet gear. Whoever you're locked in a bunker with, tell them all about why the world has ended. I'm sure they'll be less likely to cannibalize you if you explain to them incessantly about how it's the galaxy that's caused the collapse of civilization. Demonstrate your ignorance of cosmology, astrophysics, and all things astronomy with your galactic current sheet alarmism products. Once again, congratulations on realizing the channel exists. By the way, the throw blanket is very plush. It is very plush indeed. You can also find links to our CBD shop. You'll find some savings on the Hemp Lucid shop, by the way, if you use our link. You can also use the promo code SMASHOMASH10 to save some cash on checkout. Still enough time to order some gifts from Hemp Lucid as well. What the hell is going on with my scrolling? Oh my God, I'm going to completely snap. Jeez. Smooth scroll, please. Thanks. Yeah, so there's the Hemp Lucid shop. The most popular product is indeed the water-soluble CBD tincture. So check that out. Perhaps check out some reishi mushroom products for focus. All kinds of different interesting things, including lip balm and lots more for your last-minute gift decisions on the Hemp Lucid page. You can also find us at smashomash.com/smashteam. It is the official subscription services site of the Smash News Network, least busted name of news. You can find our links there as well. You'll find links to the Hemp Lucid shop, to Facebook, PayPal, a permanent invite link to our Discord chat, the YouTube channel, to SureMed, and lots more. So click our links, help us out that way. If you're unable to open your cobweb-encrusted wallet, join the Smash team at the bronze level. You'll still get email alerts if you sign up for them, thanks to our gold and silver Smash team level members especially. And let's get to our meteorology segment. So what we're looking at here are currents and sea surface temperature. So maybe that looks scary and spooky to you. A lot of people are scared and spooked of the North Atlantic because they think that, oh no, fresh water from here is going to come down here and it's going to shut down the Gulf Stream, and then it's going to get very cold in places like Europe, and the entire northern hemisphere is going to freeze. Although we don't see that. So there's that. You can see there is some cold water coming down here, but the warm water is still making it to Iceland and Ireland and Norway and so forth. So facts. Those are some facts. The Gulf Stream is not shutting down. It's still there, as you can see. And if you think that's abnormal, there are the sea surface temperature anomalies. You've got some cold and hot water mixing together there in the North Atlantic. This is what you see at the beginning of winter. But at the moment, not expecting any years without a summer coming to Europe because, well, those are facts. The Gulf Stream is still making it there. And check out the anomalously cold water on the east coast of Australia. All right, let's switch to our normally scheduled meteorology segments here. These are the surface winds of the eastern world. These are the jet streams of the eastern world. Jet streams of the west looking like this. We've got a huge low over the central U.S. here, an upper level low. You can see that counterclockwise rotation even in the jet stream. Here are the surface winds. And indeed, you can see that low making it all the way down to the surface level. Strong onshore winds there at Nova Scotia. Here are the surface winds of the central portion of the planet. And here are the jet streams. Let's move on and blast through the rest of our meteorology segment. And we'll start things out looking at the clouds and fog over the Americas. Some great imagery there from the GOES Interactive Weather Satellite Suite, the 3.9 nanometer radiation satellite, great at showing clouds and fog when it's too dark to use the visible satellite. As the sun rises over the western world, that is what's going on in terms of clouds and fog on Chris on Earth. Here is our weather.gov map. If your county's lit, click your county. We've got some severe storms in the Gulf states there. We've got a band of red. Those are flash flood warnings. And also a bunch of tornado watches. Dozens of counties there showing up with tornado watches. If your county's lit, click your county or your waterway if you are performing some maritime operations. Those orange areas are all blizzard warnings. So let's take a look at a snow forecast. So some heavy snow here coming to places like Minnesota is going to be blanketed with quite a bit of snow. Also Wisconsin, North Dakota, South Dakota, Montana. Like, I'm not going to name all those states. That's a lot of states. That's a 72-hour GFS accumulated snow depth forecast. And most of Pennsylvania expecting to be blanketed. Some portions receiving as much as about 10 inches of snow there in Pennsylvania. That's, again, the 72-hour GFS accumulated snow depth change in inches forecast. Here is your pressure and precipitation forecast. You can see some ice storms forecasted there. Please don't drive in the freezing rain. It's maybe you've got studded tires, but hey, if you don't have studded tires, please don't drive in the freezing rain. It's not going to work out well. You may find yourself in a ditch. And that's no good. Once again, that's your 72-hour GFS pressure and precipitation forecast. Let's take a look at some more weather factors here. Here is the European forecast for snow depth change. There's where things will be on Saturday. And the European forecast here putting the snow a little bit farther north there. So less of Pennsylvania expected to be covered by snow, according to the European model. That's from windy.com, who's got a great mobile app, by the way. And check out the severe storms here, stretching from East Texas up into Tennessee a little bit there. Extreme lightning there showing up in the NASA GOES lightning mapper. And let's see if we've got active cells now. And indeed we do. So north of Baton Rouge there especially, we've got some severe thunderstorms there near Jackson, Mississippi. Heavy lightning strikes there. That's the kind of storm that could produce damaging wind and hail. And no general disturbance. I don't put skis on my bike. I do own a snowboard, though. So that's a lightning situation. Oh, let's show the global lightning map here. Since we do have viewers from all around the world, there is the full lightningmaps.org view. Lightningmaps.org. It's simply the best real-time lightning map that you'll all ever see. I'm not sure if it's the only real-time lightning map, but it's quite good. So here is the U.S. Doppler radar map as we bring our video to a close here. There's the full 50 states of ALSA, the allegedly United States of America. A country where it's now legal to mislead your investors, apparently, at least according to Google, Facebook, Apple, and Twitter. Yes, fine job you're doing there, big tech organizations. Fine job you're doing. Maybe the Securities and Exchange Commission will actually prosecute the criminals that work for these organizations, but I suppose not. I suppose misleading investors will just continue indefinitely. There's a U.S. Doppler radar map. Here is the shortwave radiation showing clouds and fog. As we cite fact after fact, the most controversial thing there is in the world, starting in the year 2020, aka 1984. So there's the water vapor. That should clear things up. A lot of moisture here east of the Mississippi. And it's slowly moving here as there's not a lot of impulse behind it to send it through. That low is stagnating things. Well, that low is now around the Nebraska-South Carolina border. You should be able to see it there quite well in the U.S. Doppler radar map. It'll show up even better in the shortwave radiation map showing clouds and fog. You can see right there is the center of that low, right near the Nebraska-South Dakota border. And it'll also be very apparent in the water vapor map. So thanks for tuning into the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. Once again, congratulations on realizing the channel exists. May that solar wind be at your back. I've been your host, Dan, a.k.a. Smash-O-Mash, signing off. Opinions expressed in this video, not necessarily the opinions of Smash News Network, least busted name in news.